Welcome to another edition of World Talks here on TVP World. I'm your host Benjamin Lee, and please join me and my guests on this next interview. A German MP from the AfD is under fire after reportedly organizing unofficial trips to Moscow for party supporters, described as touristic but in violation of parliamentary rules. Meanwhile, a German nationalist political activist has applied for asylum in the United States, prompting debate over whether recent U.S. decisions to accept European asylum seekers signal a shift in policy. Joining us today on TVP World to explore these developments is Roland Freudenstein, a co-founder of the Brussels Freedom Hub and a longtime observer of political movements as well as democratic resilience across Europe. Hello and welcome to TVP World.
Good evening.
Good
evening and thanks for having me.
Right. Now, looking at this trip from the AfD party members, Parliament have already banned MPs from private travel to Russia. How did the AfD trips reportedly bypass these rules?
Well, the fact is that the leadership of the AfD parliamentary group has officially approved that trip, and they're now embarrassed about it. And the other political parties, first of all, of course, the leading coalition partner in the government, are making the most of this because to show that AfD is a pro-Putin party is still something that is not okay with the mainstream of public opinion in Germany.
Right, so it's really hard to imagine that this is not really obvious. What do you think was the plan behind going on such a trip?
They have more or less said it themselves. Of course, they claim that this is not at the invitation of the Russian government, that it's a think tank, and it's not in Moscow but in Sochi, and it's a conference mainly for representatives from the BRICS countries. So, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and a couple of others. So they're trying to say that, hey, this is not like Putin inviting us or something. But the interesting thing is that they also added that this visit is to be seen in a context of them getting closer to the MAGA movement and Trump's Republican Party in the US. So, that's where the circle closes in a way. And they're saying, look, if the European mainstream has a problem with Trump and has a problem with Putin, we are actually talking to both of them. And of course, it's all on the purpose of bringing peace to Ukraine and to Europe. And it is so obvious that this is a lie and that this is helping Putin that it's actually bad for the image of AfD. But I have to add, this should never be the only accusation against AfD. I mean, their plans for Germany are bad. They are a deeply anti-Western political party, opposed to the rule of law, opposed to checks and balances, and really nationalist, and opposed to Germany's membership in the European Union. So there's a lot of reasons to criticize AfD, and their pro-Russian attitudes are, of course, a welcome element to use in arguing against them, but it should never be the only one.
Right. From the other perspective, from the Moscow side, what do you think the goal is hosting an unofficial delegation from a German party at this time?
Well, that's completely clear. That Putin takes whatever he gets in terms of allies and friends in the European Union, in the West in general, and he finds them on the extreme left, he finds them on the extreme right, and if he could, he would find them in the political center. So, for them, it is absolutely attractive to split the West, to create domestic division in the member states of the European Union and NATO. So for him, this is great.
Now, do you think the Bundestag should be treating this as just a violation of protocol or something even closer to political subversion at this point?
No, it's treason. It is helping a brutal dictator, and that should be the accusation here. I don't think that the parliamentary a protocol actually takes us much further here. Not to visit Russia is more a democratic commitment of the members of Bundestag, but I do not think that this is an ironclad rule which can be, or whose violation can be prosecuted in parliamentary terms.
So do you think from Brussels' perspective, they should be pushing for stricter rules on unofficial foreign visits, especially with the elected officials or anyone from the member states?
Yeah, if possible, yes. But as I said, for the moment, the naming and shaming is quite something. Otherwise, the AfD leadership wouldn't be so embarrassed about the whole thing. So the naming and shaming is bad enough for that party.
Right, and sometimes sunlight is the best disinfectant indeed. Just letting them do their thing is probably also a way to expose what the ideology behind it really is. Now, I want to shift gears a little bit as well, because recently we've also saw a German national political activist seeking asylum in the United States on political grounds. Is that is that claim credible under international law at the moment?
Well, there is no international law that prohibits the United States from recognizing someone as a political asylum, as a receiver of a recipient of political asylum. But look, even a year ago, such a request would have caused laughter in the US government. And it is a sign of the times that this is actually taken seriously by not just Republican activists, but actually Republican members of Congress. And the US government is seriously considering this request, which is absolutely ridiculous because that lady has undergone some criticism on social media. She claims that there have been threats against her. Well, that is true for thousands and thousands of people in public debates in Germany. And these threats are made from all sides of the political spectrum. So her whole case is completely ludicrous, but she finds some open ears and some sympathies in a US Republican Party, which has gone completely wild and is turning the whole idea of political asylum upside down, as we see in other cases too.
Yeah, speaking of the other cases, we're also seeing not only have they accepted a number of Europeans, also now they're talking about white South African asylum seekers as well. Why do you think these cases sparked particular controversy?
Well, it's the selectiveness. I mean, it's saying we only take white South Africans and nobody with a different skin color. Sorry to be so blunt, but that's absolutely turning the principles of political asylum on their head, because political asylum doesn't know skin colors. The idea of political asylum is someone is seriously prosecuted. They're under threat in a dictatorship in a different country, and then they get political asylum, or at least they get a procedure to establish whether they have the right to political asylum. But I mean, to say we only take white South Africans is completely runs counter to the very idea of sheltering prosecuted Democrats from across the world. And, I must say that the case of the young lady, Naomi Seibt, is a PR stunt on her side, of course, because 5 weeks ago, no one knew who she was, and suddenly half of the world is talking about her. So that's good for her media followership, I guess.
All right. Going to the South African case, though, it wasn't the argument because of the prosecution of particularly white South Africans and the farmers that led to the decision to give them assignment. Isn't persecution based on race something that is it is encompassed in the typical standard for political asylum?
In principle, yes. But then you can't say we only or predominantly will take white South Africans and nobody else from the whole continent of Africa. That is not possible, or at least that runs counter to the idea of political asylum. And, actually what is happening in the US here is wokeness on the right. as it's called. The MAGA movement has turned woke in the sense of becoming extremely intolerant to anybody who disagrees with them. And the old principle of the French after the French Revolution is, I fight against everything you say, but I'll give my life for you being able to say it. That is completely demolished by the MAGA movement now.
Can you help me elaborate a little bit on that? What are some of the cases that runs counter to the saying that you just quoted for us?
Well, the MAGA movement makes it absolutely clear that someone who disagrees with them is not a legitimate person. I mean, we've seen this after the murder of Charlie Kirk, which was used to form a legal basis to prosecute anyone allegedly belonging to Antifa, which is a very loose movement, not even an organization. And, there were already voices in the Republican Party and in the US government saying that we should prosecute anyone with leftist views. That's how one step is taken after the other in kind of delegitimizing anybody who disagrees with the US government. This has started. This will hopefully be stopped at some point, also with the help of courts and, of course, with the help of US voters, as we saw last week in a couple of regional elections. But the danger is clearly there that this US government is becoming autocratic in the sense of not tolerating dissent and using so-called lawfare, using the means of the law to actually prevent political dissent from even being uttered.
All right. Thank you for your input and insight. Appreciate it. And thanks for being with us on TVP World.
Thank you.
Yes. And thank you for tuning into this edition of World Talks. For more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.